Hey guys, welcome to Digit.in, and what we have for you today is our review of Xiaomi's Mi TV 5X. Now, Xiaomi has been selling TVs in India since 2018, and that's when they launched their first Mi TV 4. If you remember, it was that really slim TV that they launched with, and since then Xiaomi has been selling TVs from 32 inches all the way up to 75 inches in India. We've reviewed quite a few of them, and if you're interested, you can go and check them out. And if you aren't aware of why you can't find them, it's probably because you aren't subscribed to the channel, and you can hit the bell icon to be notified when we upload a new video. Okay, with that out of the way, let's get on with this, the Mi TV 5X. Now, before we delve into the real world performance, let's see the numbers that we got using our Calman to analyze the performance of this display, and then we'll talk about how that translates into real world performance. Speaking of peak brightness, this TV has a peak brightness that goes slightly above 300 nits. Between the 300 to 325 nit mark is where we peg it, and that isn't really high when it comes to HDR content, but that's not the only thing. When it comes to colors, this TV has some pretty decent color reproduction, which is what we found from our Calman analysis. Now, when it comes to SDR, we found that the movie preset gave us an average delta error of 3.5, which is really low. Remember, the human eye can discern content, discern colors above delta error 3, and this is just at 3.5, which for a budget TV is actually pretty good, especially since this is SDR content that we're talking about right now. In the standard preset, that error goes high to about 8.5, which is acceptable because at the standard preset, you are going to have the color calibration to suit a certain type of content. What we are trying to look at here is the D65 white point. Now, moving over to HDR content, remember that there are very few TVs, almost no TVs that can actually show you the full BT 2020 color space, but they all try to achieve that number, and because of this, the delta errors that we are going to find for HDR content is going to be pretty high. As you can see, for HDR content in our color checker analysis, we found that the movie preset gave us an average delta error of 12.1, but the standard preset was slightly higher at 13. Once again, these are numbers that one would expect. Now, when you see the saturation sweep, you will notice that it is slightly towards the cooler bias, but the average delta error here is also relatively low at 3.22. When you see the grayscale tracking, you can see that the RGB balance without luminance is right at the center, which is at the 100 point mark all the way up to 50, and that is because that is where we will see most TVs start to trail off, and it is difficult for them to maintain the RGB balance through and through. This is not something that's unnatural or bad in any way. The fact that from 0 to 50 the RGB balance is very close to the 100 point is actually very good. You can see that the EOTF graph, the TV kind of maintains it in line with what is considered as ideal, and this is also actually something that's pretty good. So overall, from our Calman analysis, we can tell you that while the TV can produce good colors, it does suffer when it comes to peak brightness, which for budget TVs is something that we've seen in the past. So how does this translate to real world performance? Well, let's kick things off with content that we've seen in HDR, which is in Dolby Vision on a platform like Netflix. We have shows like Our Planet, Altered Carbon, and so many more that we see, and the warehouse fight sequence in Altered Carbon that we usually watch does seem slightly dimmer when it comes to the brightness, but it isn't bad in any way. I mean, it is really enjoyable. You can still make out the details in the dark sequences, especially when you will consume content in a slightly darker room where you have control over the lighting. Remember, in a room like this where we have a lot of bright light coming in, the panel's peak brightness does suffer for content consumption. But if you can close the curtains, or if you're going to consume content in the evening where you have control of the lighting in the room, then yes, the content consumption on this TV is actually very enjoyable. Even in Our Planet, you can see from the visuals on your screen that the color reproduction of this TV is actually pretty good. When we reviewed the Realme 4K TV, the 43-inch one earlier this year, we said that there's a pretty good baseline where HDR content is kind of enjoyable on these TVs, and this TV crosses that baseline by a small bit, but it does, which means that you can really enjoy HDR content on this TV despite the lower peak brightness simply if you control the lighting in the room. The same can be said for a show like Jack Ryan, which the sequence that we use is in a darker environment, but as you can see, you can make out the content. It's not like it's too dim for you to see, and even when we switch to SDR by using an external source, we really didn't notice a marginal leap in quality that we would say, hey, don't consume HDR on this TV. No, that's not the case. While the dark sequences do take a slight bit of a hit, it isn't bad and it's actually pretty enjoyable. Moving over to a show like the Grand Tour, which has all these cars running across the desert, we have noticed that where TVs have 300 to 350 nits of peak brightness, there is some clipping of highlights, and trust me, unless you know where to look for this, you aren't going to be able to see it, and that's the case out here, which is also pretty good. HDR 10 plus content on Prime Videos has suffered with some green tint issues in some of the content, and that is absent out here, which is again a very good thing. You don't have picture preset control in HDR 10 plus, which can be a bit of a bummer, but considering the content we consumed, it was quite enjoyable and I honestly didn't miss it. I wish I could change different presets, but you have control over other settings, the more detailed settings, in case that's something you want to play around with. Moving to SDR content, like our Calman Analysis showed us, that you can get some really good colors from this, and because SDR content will look good on the brightness available on these TVs, we got a pretty enjoyable experience from content we consume, be it shows like Young Sheldon or Spider-Man Homecoming or even Mission Impossible. Now for all these pieces of content, we did switch the picture presets between standard and movie. For me, I don't like the motion smoothing effect, so I switch it off completely, but if you're someone that enjoys it, you can leave it on. That's a personal preference. Switching between the standard and the movie preset does give you better colors and the slightly warmer tone that this content should be watched in, but it does bring the backlighting down slightly, which I suggest you pump up back to 100 and leave it there. But if you're going to watch stuff like news or some of more television shows from your set-top box, you can leave it on the standard preset as well. This TV also has an ambient backlighting, which is new for Xiaomi TVs, and this will only work with SDR and HDR content, but will not work with Dolby Vision, because Dolby Vision has its own version of backlight controlling, which is called Dolby Vision IQ, which is not there on this TV. Personally, I found that switching off the auto backlighting, which just essentially controls the backlighting of the TV based on the ambient light in the room, I switched it off and bumped the backlighting all the way up to 100, and that was the best experience for me on this TV. Moving over to gaming, when you connect a PS5 to this TV has 3 HDMI ports, which Xiaomi says brings HDMI 2.1 features like auto low latency mode and enhanced audio return channel EARC. Now, while this TV does have very low latency, we couldn't measure numbers, we don't have any hardware to measure the numbers, but from experience I can tell you that the latency is really quite low and the gaming on this TV is quite enjoyable. But you can only game in 4K at 60 Hz. This TV does not have 120 Hz. It only has a 60 Hz panel. It does not support variable refresh rate, and the HDR output that you will get while gaming is YUV422. On other much higher end HDMI 2.1 TVs like the Sony X90J or the X85J that we recently reviewed, you do get full RGB HDR with 4K at 120 Hz because that has higher bandwidth HDMI 2.1. This one limits the HDMI 2.1 features to auto low latency mode only for gaming. So that is something that you need to keep in mind. We played our standard slew of games on this TV, from stuff like Ghost of Tsushima, Spider-Man, Miles Morales, Dirt 5, Ratchet & Clank, and a lot more games. The one thing to note is that the colors in this TV are really punchy, and while the TV does switch to HDR game mode once you've enabled HDMI 2.1 on it, I would suggest you go back and switch off picture processing like noise reduction or any other post-processing that may be switched to low or medium on the TV, simply because Spider-Man is a great example for this. If you're standing with the sun in the background and Spider-Man in front, you will not notice the details in his costume. He will just look like he'll just have this black outline if you use his native costume. But once you switch all the post-processing off, you do get some of the highlights of the details in his costume, which is why I highly recommend you go and do that. That translates to all the other games and will give you a pretty good gaming experience. Even in a game like Ghost of Tsushima, which has these beautiful colors, you will have a pretty enjoyable experience on this TV, and the input lag will work in your favor because I really enjoyed, fast-paced action games on this TV. Even a game like Dirt 5, which is racing across the desert with the sun pouring in, the sun actually looks pretty good. It is bright enough for gaming on this TV. Even the colors and the white in the car looks white. The sun pouring in does give you a good effect. So the gaming experience on this TV is actually pretty good. Moving over to the user interface. Now, this is where we kind of have a mixed bag of a feeling. So it does run on Android TV platform with Android TV 10, and it does come with Xiaomi's own PatchWall user interface. PatchWall has evolved to add new features, and Xiaomi has really worked on making PatchWall a very good user interface. I think it's one of the better smart TV UIs out there. This time they have an IMDb integration, so if you are going to scroll through different movies and TV shows, you are going to get a little badge giving you the IMDb rating. You also have other pretty nifty features like collections of top 10 movies in India, movies by different directors, movies by different celebrities, movies on HDR, Dolby Vision. You have these really nice collections which will help you discover movies and content which you may have skipped on otherwise. Having said that, this is one of the first times that we have seen a UI lag on Xiaomi's TVs, and it isn't something that happened once and you can forget about it. So while navigating settings when consuming content, you do notice a bit of a stutter. Even when navigating the UI generally, there was a bit of a stutter, and this is something I think that can be fixed via an update, but the UI lags happened often enough for me to mention them. Just like Xiaomi 75-inch QLED TV, this TV also comes with far-field mic, so you can just say something like, okay Google, play Stranger Things on Netflix, and the TV will do that for you. However, I found that this took way longer than it would have for me to just pick up the remote control, open Netflix, find Stranger Things, and just play it myself. So the far-field mic does recognize what you say. I mean, sometimes when I would say something like play Falcon and the Winter Soldier on Hotstar, it would refuse to recognize that. That's still something that happens. But for some content, like if I said play the Digit Sony X85J TV review on YouTube, it is something that would definitely happen, right? But it does take little more than a heartbeat than I would like it to, and it would just easier for me to go to the remote control, navigate to the app, open it, and find the piece of content. You also get these yellow LEDs at the bottom of the screen which remain on when you mute the mic. You can mute the mic via the physical button below the TV or via the UI, and those yellow lights remain on, and I wish there was a way to put them off, something that we saw on the Sony X90J for perspective. Coming to the build and design and connectivity options, you have 3 HDMI ports, 2 USB port, AV, optical 3.5mm, and Ethernet. It is a pretty standard of what we've come to expect from Xiaomi. But for the build, you do have cues taken from the Mi 55-inch QLED TV. It does have these gunmetal finish around the frame and on the feet, giving it kind of a premium feel. Not as premium as the QLED TV 55-inch we reviewed last year, but it does have a premium feel nonetheless. So overall, let's answer the most important question for you. At about 48,000 rupees, should you buy the Xiaomi Mi TV 5X? And that no longer is an easy question to answer, especially when you consider the competition out there. Now, keeping the 50,000 rupee price point, give or take 2-3,000 rupees, you do have a lot of options to choose from, and I would highly recommend you find the TV that suits your content needs. There are some TVs which are great for gaming on this budget, for example. There are some TVs which are great for OTT content consumption. If you're someone that's a part of the cord cutting generation, if you're looking for a TV for set-top box content, there might be a different recommendation for you. Where the Mi TV 5X works is it works at giving you a good picture performance, is something that you can enjoy. Is it the best? Well, at 48,000 rupees, you can check out the Philips PUT 8215 TV that we recently reviewed. That is a 50-inch panel for the same price, and it has much better color reproduction and has a brighter panel. But remember, you are going 5 inches smaller. You also have the TCL C715 50 inches. Again, this is last year's TV. And that also is available at the 50-inch screen size at this price point. So if picture quality is something that you're going for, your budget is closer to 50,000 rupees, 48,000 rupees to be more precise, these are two TVs you can most definitely look at. But if you are looking at going for 55 inches, then you can definitely take a look at the Mi TV. It does bring a pretty decent package overall. We've also reviewed the OnePlus U1S, but the 55-inch variant of that TV is more expensive than this one, and whether that justifies the performance is something we will have to take a look at and get back to you if these are the two options that you're looking for. But for the package on offer, when it comes to the screen size, you do get pretty good overall performance from the Mi TV 5X despite its few shortcomings. I do wish Xiaomi had upgraded the panel to at least have 400 nits of brightness like the Philips TV we reviewed. Then it would be a lot easier to recommend, because that would definitely help improve the picture performance overall. Nonetheless, that was our review of the Mi TV 5X. As always, if you guys have any questions, please do let us know in the comment section below. I will do my best to try and answer as many of them as I can, especially if I missed out on something that you were looking forward to. Thank you so much guys for watching, and for more from the world of technology and more TV reviews, you can subscribe to the channel and don't forget to hit the bell icon so you are notified when we upload a new video. We will catch you in another video. It's goodbye for now.